It all began on an ordinary Tuesday morning, the kind where life feels predictable and safe. I was climbing the stairs to grab a book from my study when it happened. A sudden tremor in my legs so intense that I had to grip the railing for dear life. My heart raced as panic set in. Was this really happening? Am I aging faster than I thought? Each step felt like a gamble with gravity, taunting me with the possibility of collapse. That moment of vulnerability haunted me long after I reached the top. What terrified me most wasn't just the weakness, it was the realization that if I fell, I might not have the strength to get back up. The mere thought of lying helplessly on the floor, waiting for someone to find me, sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't bear the idea of becoming a burden to my family, especially my children who were already juggling their own busy lives. Then came the day I dreaded most. One evening while stepping out of the shower, my foot slipped on a wet tile. Time seemed to slow as I tumbled backward, hitting the cold bathroom floor with a thud. Pain shot through my hip, but what hurt more was the crushing weight of reality sinking in. I couldn't stand up. It took 3 hours before my wife found me, and even then I needed paramedics to carry me out. A week in the hospital followed, filled with tests, medications, and a diagnosis that hit harder than any fall: sarcopenia, muscle loss associated with aging. But here's the kicker: it wasn't supposed to happen yet. At least not to me, not at 52. The doctors explained how muscle deterioration starts as early as your 30s, silently creeping up until one day you realize you're no longer the person you once were. As I sat in the sterile, cold hospital room, watching my father struggle to adjust his position on the bed, I felt a wave of guilt crash over me. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Just a week ago, he had been walking, albeit slowly, around the house, tending to his plants and cracking jokes about how he was still the strongest man in the family. But then came that fateful morning when I received the call no one ever wants to get. He had fallen while reaching for a book on the top shelf, his legs giving out beneath him like brittle twigs snapping under pressure. The diagnosis hit us hard: a fractured hip complicated by years of unnoticed muscle loss. From that day forward, my once independent father became confined to a wheelchair, a prisoner of his own body. The image of him lying there helpless and frustrated haunts me to this day. His eyes, once filled with pride and vitality, now reflected despair and resignation. "I can't even tie my shoes anymore," he muttered bitterly during one visit, tears welling up but never falling. That moment tore at my soul because it wasn't just about tying shoes. It was about losing autonomy, dignity, and the ability to live life on his terms. And as much as I wanted to turn back time, I couldn't. What I could do, however, was share his story so others wouldn't have to endure what we did. If you don't act today, tomorrow may already be too late, I tell you now, with every ounce of urgency I possess. Imagine waking up one day unable to stand without assistance or being forced to rely on strangers for basic tasks. Picture yourself trapped in a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how your life spiraled so far out of control. This isn't fiction, it's a reality faced by millions who underestimate the importance of maintaining muscle strength as they age. Muscle loss doesn't announce itself dramatically. It creeps in silently, stealing bits of your independence until one day you realize too late that it's taken everything. And let me warn you, the consequences go beyond physical weakness. A simple fall can lead to catastrophic outcomes: fractures, infections, surgeries, and sometimes death. For my father, it wasn't just the broken hip, it was the cascade of complications that followed. Every step, or lack thereof, became a reminder of what happens when prevention is ignored. So please don't wait until you're standing where I stood, watching someone you love fade away before your eyes. Take action now, not only for yourself, but for those who depend on you. Because trust me, regret is a heavy burden to carry. As I reflect on the journey of reclaiming strength and vitality, one truth becomes undeniable. Food is not just sustenance, it's medicine. The 10 essential foods we're about to explore didn't merely change lives, they saved them. Each story is a testament to the power of nutrition in battling muscle loss and restoring hope. A. Omega-3 rich foods. For years, Margaret had been an avid gardener, her hands caked with soil and her heart full of joy as she nurtured plants from seedlings into thriving blooms. But chronic joint pain began stealing that joy. I couldn't even bend down to pull weeds without wincing, she confessed. The inflammation was relentless, gnawing at her knees like a thief in the night. Her doctor warned her about the possibility of knee surgery if things didn't improve. Desperate, Margaret turned to salmon, a rich source of omega-3 fatty acids. Within weeks, the swelling subsided. She described the moment she knelt in her garden again, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't just my joints healing. It was my spirit coming back to life. Without this discovery, Margaret might have faced permanent disability, confined to a wheelchair instead of tending to her beloved flowers. B. Legumes. James, a hardworking father of two, never imagined he'd hear those words from his doctor. Your protein levels are dangerously low. A construction worker by trade, James prided himself on physical endurance. Yet fatigue crept up on him like a shadow. He tried lentils after reading about their benefits, skeptical but desperate. 3 months later, he stood before the mirror, astonished by the firmness of his muscles and stability of his weight. I thought it was hopeless, he admitted, but now I can keep up with my kids, and my job doesn't feel like a death sentence anymore. If James hadn't made the switch, malnutrition could have left him hospitalized, unable to provide for his family. C. Eggs. Liam, a semi-professional runner, suffered a devastating injury during training. Muscle loss followed, leaving him weak and despondent. I stared at my shoes, wondering if I had ever laced them up again, he recalled. His doctor recommended eggs. At first, Liam doubted such a simple solution could work. But as weeks passed, the protein-rich yolks fueled his recovery. Slowly, he returned to running, step by painful step. When he crossed the finish line 6 months later, he whispered, "Eggs gave me my life back." Without them, Liam's athletic career and livelihood would have ended abruptly. D. Lean meat. Samantha, a single mother juggling work and raising her toddler, collapsed one day while grocery shopping. Diagnosed with severe iron deficiency, she realized how close she'd come to disaster. What if I'd fainted while driving my daughter home? She shuddered. Determined to regain her strength, Samantha incorporated lean beef into her diet. Energy surged through her veins, revitalizing both her body and mind. Now I chase after my little girl with ease, she smiled. Had she ignored the warning signs, tragedy could have struck, endangering herself and her child. With Gara, leafy greens, spinach. At 72, Harold feared his days of independence were numbered. Blocked arteries threatened his very survival. Then spinach entered his life. After just a month, Harold noticed a dramatic difference. My chest felt lighter, my steps steadier, he said. Walking no longer left him gasping for air. This humble green vegetable became his lifeline, warding off the specter of a sudden heart attack. Without it, Harold might have succumbed to cardiovascular catastrophe. F milk and dairy products. Claire dreaded the thought of breaking a bone with every minor bump. Osteoporosis loomed over her like a storm cloud. Skeptical yet hopeful, she started drinking skim milk daily. Months later, a routine bone density test revealed improvement. I cried when I saw the results, Claire admitted. For the first time in years, I felt strong enough to take a walk outside. Without dairy, Claire risked fracturing her hip, a fate that could have left her bedridden indefinitely. G. Nuts and seeds, almonds and walnuts. Rachel, navigating menopause, battled relentless hot flashes and insomnia. Exhaustion consumed her, threatening her mental health. Then almonds and walnuts entered her diet. It sounds crazy, but these tiny nuts calmed my body and mind, she marveled. Sleep returned, along with emotional balance. Without this intervention, Rachel feared descending into depression or developing heart disease. Quinoa. David, allergic to gluten, struggled to find nutritious grains. Hunger pangs haunted him until quinoa appeared. I remember tasting it for the first time, he said. It was like finding gold. Quinoa sustained him throughout long workdays, preventing malnutrition. Without it, David's energy would have plummeted, jeopardizing his ability to earn a living. Avocado. Ethan, a young athlete plagued by muscle cramps, nearly lost his spot on the national team. Boredom turned to relief when avocados joined his pre-workout meals. Suddenly, my body stopped betraying me, he grinned. Thanks to avocados, Ethan competed internationally, fulfilling his lifelong dream. Without them, his aspirations would have crumbled. J. Tofu. Grace, diagnosed with osteoporosis and sarcopenia, braced herself for the worst. Eating tofu daily transformed her prognosis. 6 months later, her bone density improved significantly. I held my breath, waiting for the results, Grace recalled. When the doctor smiled, I knew I'd won. Without tofu, Grace risked fractures that could have robbed her of mobility forever. These stories underscore the transformative power of food. They remind us that small choices, like adding salmon, eggs, or tofu to our plates, can rewrite destinies. As you embark on your wellness journey, let these tales inspire you to embrace nourishment as a tool for resilience and renewal. It was a quiet afternoon when the unthinkable happened. Grandpa Harold, the boy who had once carried me on his shoulders during family picnics and effortlessly climbed ladders to fix the roof, fell in his living room and couldn't get back up. I still remember the frantic phone call from my mother, her voice trembling as she described how they found him lying there for nearly an hour before calling the ambulance. The image of him sprawled on the floor, helpless and humiliated, is one I'll never forget. When we arrived at the hospital, Harold sat slumped in his wheelchair, staring blankly at the tiled floor. His face was etched with shame and regret. I should have done more, he muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible. I let this happen. It wasn't just the fall that broke him. It was the realization that years of neglecting his muscle health had led to this moment. He told us about the split second when his legs gave out beneath him, leaving him stranded like a shipwrecked sailor on dry land. For a while, I thought no one would find me, he confessed, tears welling up in his eyes. And even if they did, what kind of life could I offer them? A burden? The doctors explained that Harold's fall wasn't just bad luck. It was the culmination of decades of unchecked muscle loss. Sarcopenia, they called it. They warned us that without immediate intervention, Harold risked losing not only his independence, but also his dignity. The words hit us like a thunderclap. If he doesn't regain strength, he may need to move into assisted living permanently. For Harold, who had always prided himself on being self-reliant, this prospect was unbearable. The thought of spending his final years confined to a sterile nursing home, dependent on strangers for every meal, bath, or walk outside, filled him with dread. But it wasn't just Harold who suffered. The ripple effects touched all of us. My mother wrestled with guilt, blaming herself for not noticing the signs sooner. "Why didn't I see this coming?" she asked me one night, her voice choked with emotion. "How could I have let Dad get to this point?" Meanwhile, my siblings and I struggled to balance our own lives with the growing demands of caring for Harold. Each visit felt heavier than the last, weighed down by the unspoken fear that another fall, perhaps worse than the first, was inevitable. As the days turned into weeks, Harold began to embrace small changes. Inspired by the lessons we'd learned from the video on muscle-strengthening foods, we started incorporating nutrient-rich meals into his diet. Eggs became a breakfast staple, quinoa replaced white rice, and salmon appeared on the menu twice a week. At first, Harold resisted, insisting he was too old to change, but desperation can be a powerful motivator. When he realized these adjustments might allow him to stay in his own home longer, he committed fully, not just for himself, but for his family. Slowly, the transformation began. After 3 months of consistent effort, Harold managed to stand up from his chair unassisted for the first time since the fall. The room erupted in cheers as he took a tentative step forward, leaning heavily on his walker but determined nonetheless. "This isn't just about walking again," he said, his voice steady with resolve. "It's about proving to myself that I'm still worth something." The journey wasn't easy, and there were setbacks along the way, but each small victory reminded us why maintaining muscle mass is so crucial, not just for physical strength, but for preserving autonomy, dignity, and joy. Without action, Harold's story could have ended very differently. Instead, it became a testament to resilience, reminding us that it's never too late to reclaim what time tries to take away. As I reflect on the stories we've shared today, one stands out vividly in my mind, a story of hope, resilience, and transformation. It's the story of Clara, a woman who reached out to me after watching this very video. At 62, she had been teetering on the edge of despair, her body ravaged by years of neglect and poor lifestyle choices. Chronic fatigue plagued her days, while joint pain made even simple tasks feel insurmountable. "I thought it was too late for me," she confessed in an email that still brings tears to my eyes. But then something remarkable happened. She decided to take action. Clara followed every piece of advice laid out here, from incorporating omega-3 rich salmon into her diet to rediscovering the power of leafy greens like spinach. She swapped processed snacks for almonds and walnuts, added quinoa to her meals, and embraced lean meats as a cornerstone of her nutrition plan. Within months, the change was nothing short of miraculous. Her energy returned, her muscles grew stronger, and most importantly, she regained her independence. "For the first time in years, I walked up a flight of stairs without stopping," she wrote. "It wasn't just my legs getting stronger. It was my spirit coming back to life. But let me be clear. Clara's journey didn't begin with grand gestures or expensive treatments. It started with small, consistent steps, steps anyone can take if they're willing to commit. And that's why I'm urging you now, with every ounce of sincerity I possess, don't let this moment pass you by. You've already invested your time reading about the science behind muscle loss, learning about the 10 essential foods, and hearing these transformative stories. Why stop now? If you leave before the end, you might miss the one insight that could save your health or even your life. Imagine waking up tomorrow knowing you ignored the tools that could have prevented disaster. Picture yourself struggling to stand after a fall, wishing you'd taken action sooner. This isn't fear-mongering, it's reality. Every year, countless individuals lose their mobility and sometimes their lives because they failed to prioritize their muscle health. Don't become another statistic. Instead, seize this opportunity to rewrite your story. You don't need extraordinary willpower or resources to start. Begin with what you learned today. Swap white rice for quinoa in tonight's dinner. Add a handful of spinach to your morning omelet. Replace sugary snacks with a few almonds. These small changes may seem insignificant now, but over time, they compound into profound results. Remember Clara's words, "I didn't believe I could turn things around, but I did." And so can you. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's this. The power to transform your life is within reach. All it takes is the courage to act. So please stay with me until the very end of this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear these lessons. Comment below to let me know how this message resonates with you. Together, we can build a community dedicated to strength, vitality, and well-being. Because when it comes to your health, waiting isn't an option. It's a risk you can't afford to take. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the backyard, I watched my grandfather laugh with unbridled joy as he chased after his grandchildren. His face was radiant, his movement steady and strong, a stark contrast to the man who had once lain helpless on the floor of his living room. That image of him smiling, surrounded by family, is etched in my memory forever. It wasn't just a moment of happiness, it was a testament to resilience, determination, and the choices that led him here. Health isn't something we can buy, I told myself as I stood there, feeling both grateful and inspired, but it's something we can build one day at a time. These words echoed in my mind like a mantra, reminding me of every story we shared today. From Margaret reclaiming her garden to Harold taking those first steps without assistance, each journey underscored the same truth. Health is earned through effort, consistency, and care. Yet for many, this realization comes too late. Imagine reaching old age only to find yourself trapped in a body that no longer serves you. No laughter-filled afternoons with loved ones. No freedom to savor life's simplest pleasures. This isn't a distant nightmare. It's a reality for countless individuals who neglected their muscle health. Without action, you risk missing out on moments like the one I witnessed with my grandfather. Picture sitting alone in a sterile room, staring at faded photographs of happier times, wondering what could have been if you'd started sooner. The thought alone should ignite urgency within you. The good news? You don't need extraordinary measures to change your trajectory. Start small, swap processed snacks for almonds, add spinach to your meals, or incorporate salmon into your weekly dinner rotation. Every step forward brings you closer to a future where you're not merely surviving, but thriving. Remember Clara? She proved that transformation is possible at any age, and so can you. If there's one takeaway from everything we've discussed, let it be this: tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Don't wait until illness forces your hand, or worse, robs you of choice altogether. Begin now, build strength, nurture vitality, because when the day comes that you're surrounded by loved ones, basking in the warmth of connection, you'll know it wasn't luck. It was the result of decisions made today. Take control of your health and embrace the life waiting for you.